Nice with the Lep. I'm your host, B. Lepo. This is Opioids Part 2 in the case for legalization, decriminalization, and regulation of drugs in America. Opioids Part 1, we went over a lot of stuff. We're just going to continue to tread the same shit sandwich and, make you think a little bit. From 2014 to 2016, the opioid overdose rate increased by 48% in 2 years, and that's largely in part because of fentanyl and the influx of prescription drugs to the streets. Fentanyl, born out of pharmaceutical medication, people realized that they were sitting on a gold mine and started taking it to the streets and cutting it into street drugs, which goes back to point number 3 or whatever the fuck it was, where making things legal all around will take away that that window of unregulated mixing. When you're dealing with nuclear substance, if you don't know what the fuck you're doing, people will die. Americans account for 5% of the world's population, but consume 80% of the world's opioids. I mean, think about that. It's a staggering statistic. 80% of the world's opioids that are produced, grown, synthesized, are consumed by Americans. And, so the fact is that opioids are here to stay. And the way we've been fighting it is ineffective. Spend $9.2 million a day in 2016 on the war on drugs, to no avail. Addiction rate continues to rise. Bottom line is that if you want to use drugs, you're going to use drugs, whether they're legal or not. So, to me and to many others, the best way to rethink this problem is to go the way of alcohol. Legalize, regulate, put some laws in place to kind of keep everybody on a short leash, and whoever it's going to obliterate, it will, and whoever it won't, it won't. But the fact is that you'll take away a lot of the subsequent problems in society we have. The prison, the overcrowding of prisons for non-violent drug offenders, which, keep in mind, does not help get people off drugs. I mean, that's the key. It would be different if you lock people up and it made a difference. It doesn't. I personally know many people who have been locked up for 5 to 10 years, get out, immediately start using drugs again. Now, some of the haters will be like, that's because they're stupid and whatever. No, it's because it's a sickness. It's a genetic sickness that happens. Was it their choice to start using? Probably. Not always, though. Not always, as we've been discussing. Many, good-natured people who had their knee give out on them, and somewhere in their genetic code had a predisposition for addiction. Doctor prescribes them pain pills. The next thing you know, the devil is loose in the world, and they didn't even see it coming. And then put in the problem with health insurance coverage. Your insurance drops. You don't have insurance. Your doctor takes away the prescription, and you've got a huge, colossal problem that can't be understated. Nobody with an addictive personality or an addiction, an active addiction, is going to get sober because of a stalemate that you have put them into. You know, for example, you're a father, you're addicted to drugs, and somebody says, I'm going to take your children away unless you stop using. If you're ready to stop using and you've hit your bottom mentally, physically, spiritually, whatever, financially, and you've hit your bottom because it's different for everybody else, it may work, but usually it doesn't. All that will do is cause that father to figure out the angle, lie to keep his children with him, and he'll continue to use until he hits his bottom. And his bottom may be, you know, something very trivial, like he wakes up one day and has a dream about his mother or something, you know, and it just hits the right note. The point is that it has to come from the addict himself, or it won't work. It's all a ruse. Good intentions, yeah, okay. That doesn't necessarily mean if you have a loved one that's addicted, you have to be an enabler, but understand that it's nothing personal. It really isn't. It seems personal. They're stealing from you. They're lying to you. They're doing stuff. But it's just survival. It's day-to-day survival to continue, you know, their insanity. And until they're ready, they can't get it together. You know. We talked about last time the methadone programs and the insidious nature of, you know, all the angles there. There's another program that I personally am a huge believer in, and that's the Suboxone program. And, you know, the knee-jerk reaction is well, Suboxone is a buprenorphine. It's a opiate blocker that you take. It's a little strip. It's not liquid like methadone. It's a little strip that you can take, and it will keep you from getting sick, and it has a cravings blocker in it. So your cravings to play the game go away miraculously. Buprenorphine is it's a miracle. It really is. If you're an addict, you're tired of the street game, you're tired of the hustle, you've got a kid, you want to keep your job, you really want to stop, but you don't have $20,000 to $30,000 for a rehab program, you don't have health insurance or mental insurance that you can go and start seeing a psychiatrist for years, because recovery costs a lot of money. You can find a doctor that prescribes buprenorphine or Suboxone, and it's a little strip. You take it once a day, the right amount. That's the key. If you're prescribed the right amount, it does not fuck you up at all. Like methadone, people who take methadone tend to be not feeling great. Like they're always a little tired, they're dragging, they just don't feel great. Suboxone's different. If you're on the right dose, no one would ever know. No one knows anything. The only difference is that you're not running the game, you're not nodding out, you're not fucked up, you are a normal level person. Now, you know, pros and cons. Con is you're taking a prescription drug, you know, from now until the rest of your days, because Suboxone is hard to get off of, you know. But maybe it would cause you to keep a job long enough where you save enough money where you can afford a rehab and you can afford whatever, and if you want to go through that hell, you can. You know, a pro is that it will fix the nightmare. It will fix the nightmare, you know, of addiction. Because I've seen it happen. It's a miracle. Like, it's a fucking miracle, you know. Now, they try to regulate it, you know, they try to keep people on the level, because what happens is that if you don't have insurance and you've heard of this drug, you know, Suboxone, that will not fuck you up, level you out, make you a contributive member of society if you get on it, and you can't get on it because you don't have insurance or you can't find a doctor who will prescribe it or whatever, then you can go to the streets and get Suboxone, you know, because a lot of empathetic former users who are normal because they're on Suboxone will, you know, play the game a little bit, get a little bit more Suboxone prescribed than what they need, and then sell it to addicts who are tired of the game, you know. So it's out there, you know, and it's a miracle. And I really think that we're missing the ball. A lot of people are like, you know, oh, that's smart, you know, you're going to treat drugs with another drug. Look, if it's if it looks like a fish and it smells like a fish, it's a fucking fish, you know. And in my head, there are no simple answers here. You know, those same people who say that do they understand the amount of money it costs to get sober? You know, the amount of, you know, luck and just so many things have to go perfectly right for you to get sober. And 90% of people who get sober don't get sober off the first try. It's like the fifth try. So imagine that, spending 30 grand on a bed trying to get sober, and it's the first try. You know, what then? You know, so along with the legalization of drugs that we're going to talk about in the sections to come, we're going to talk about recovery plans, because I'm not saying I want a society of lunatic drug users. The fact is right now it's illegal, and we have a society of lunatic drug users, you know, including alcohol. Really awful, debilitating drug, alcohol. You know, it's legal. So, you know, so that's it. So Suboxone, talking statistics. The other thing is that, you know, a lot of the things that, like, you're either, when you talk about prescription versus street, you've got the street users of heroin who just made poor choices and they're in deep shit. You've got the unintentional problem of a prescription user who was in serious pain, got prescribed opioids, and the next thing you know, they're totally fucked. And then you've got diversionary users, which are the kids or the friends of friends. How many of you have had a friend who's like, man, my fucking neck is killing me, and you're like, hey, I got some Vicodin. You want a Vicodin? You know, I know you're out there. I'm not judging you, but that causes ripples as well. Some of those people, if they have a penchant for a sweet tooth or genetic if they've got a genetic penchant for addiction, you may have opened a floodgate of something you didn't even realize. And you may not realize that they're probably stealing from you if they have that sweet tooth. You know, they might be like, oh shit, that Vicodin was unbelievable. And they'll hit you up again, and then they'll start using your bathroom because they got to take a shit at your house, and they're taking a pill or two from your prescription that you're totally unaware of because you don't have that sweet tooth. You just have a prescription because, you know, it's what you do. And ironically, you may have that sweet tooth, you just don't know it. So that's called diversionary addicts, where all of a sudden, you know, they didn't have a prescription, they don't have access to the street drugs. They're all of a sudden in that world because of a couple loners on a back pain or a knee pain. The point is that no one wakes up and says, man, I'm going to become a drug addict. So the knee-jerk reaction of, don't be fucking stupid, just don't use heroin morons. It's not like that. It really is. Um, you know, it's a mental illness, and more people are finding that out the hard way. For every person I knew in my life that talked that way and was like, I'm not fucking stupid. I never. My favorite, one of the greats is heroin users who snort, and they're like, well, I'm not scum. I'm not going to use a needle. You know. Now, a couple things there. One, you know, if you're using heroin and you're judging someone who's using heroin using a needle, and you think that they're beneath you, you're lying to yourself. You're rationalizing. Ingestion of heroin is what we're talking about. Number two, heroin is the quickest, most effective, more bang for your buck way. Needles using heroin is the quickest, most effective bang for your buck way of getting the heroin into your system. So if you are a snorter, you've never used a needle, and all of a sudden you use a needle, you'll be like, gosh, this is economically the best way. I mean, it's much more bang for my buck, and, you know, what the fuck was I thinking? Or if you're a prescription opioid user and you're taking pills and you're watching the nightly news, and every day you have to take your hydrocodone, your oxycodone, your Vicodin, your Opania, whatever it may be, your morphine, your pain relievers of all kinds, and you're watching the nightly news and they're like, the heroin epidemic has ravaged the city, and you find yourself going, fucking trash, I'm so sick of these drug users and this and that. You may not realize that you are them. You're just on a different level. You know, you're on an upper echelon in your head, at least, because society has dealt you drugs legally and them drugs illegally. All I'm saying is we should all be on the same playing field, you know, because it would save a shitload of money, stop a shitload of violence, and probably bring the addiction numbers down ultimately, because of education, and you take away the mystique of it, and you're faced with hard realities. Well, hey, mommy, you know, heroin is bad. Yeah, it is bad, and you know, you can get a prescription, but you see that building right there? That building is a rehab center, because if you decide to go down that route, or if you abuse those drugs, it's so devastating, and they have these rehab units set up, and they've really come a long way with whatever. We used to lock people up, you know, because of this. Not for violence or anything like that, but just because they were caught with drugs. You know, we would put them in cages, thinking that that was going to help, and it doesn't help. It costs us money, and it does nothing. It's the most unproductive thing you could do. You know, another thing I want to mention is a lot of people, you know, fentanyl is a game changer, and a lot of people who don't understand the depths of it are like, well, you know, if you heard somebody's overdosed, why don't you just not cop? You know, cop is the term for getting drugs from the city on any given day. Why don't you just not cop that day? That's not how it works. If you're a diehard addict and you hear that someone is overdosing off of getting drugs from a certain corner, you're going to that corner because that's good shit. And you're rationalizing to yourself, you're saying, well, shit, that must be really good shit. I'll do less than what I usually do. I'll pay the same amount. It's economics. It goes down to economics. And that might be stupid from a sideline standpoint, but, you know, if you have, you know, a steak that's farm raised and it's, you know, it's the shit, it's the obvious shit, or you have a piece of shit steak from Walmart, you know, and it's the same price, you're going to go for the farm raised, balls out, you know, whatever. Or take, you know, it's just one of those things where, like, a lot of it comes down to just simple economics. Addicts aren't rich. They need to spend their money wisely. So the best economics of being a dope slave is using the needle, because you'll get more bang for your buck. It'll last a smidge longer, and you know, and you can't stop. Well, you know, and you look for the best shit, because unregulated shit is going to be cut with all kinds of different shit. So some days you're sick as fuck, you get the dope, you inject it, and it doesn't do what it needs to do to make you well. So now you're broke, you're sick, and you're still fucked, you know. Subsequently, just a little caveat, if you, back to the Suboxone thing, if you take Suboxone and then you take heroin, it will kill you. So you don't want to do that. If you're trying to walk the line of Suboxone, you need to walk the line of Suboxone. And if you don't, if you know, don't want to, then don't. But anyway, so the opioid epidemic is just ravaging, and everything we're doing at this particular point is nothing. So we need to rethink it. Next week I'm coming back with amphetamines with a vengeance. I'm B. Lepo. It's ice.